Please welcome your host for this evening, Emmy Award-winning television journalist, radio host, and news anchor for Univision, Tzitziki Felix.
How's everyone tonight? I am very, very happy to be part of tonight's celebration. This is actually the very first time that I have the honor of being here with you. And I am sorry I'm interrupting all these great conversations that I'm sure they're going to be taking place very, very soon. We were having those great conversations when I was introduced. So for those of you that do not know me, I just arrived to Washington a few weeks ago. I'm the news anchor for Univision, Monday through Friday, 6 and 11 p.m. And thank you so much. And it is an honor for me to be here in this great city, not just being here tonight because we're going to have a great program. We also have Perspectiva Nacional, which is a political show, every weekend. And it airs on every single Entravision platform. And I'm very, very happy to be here and be part of tonight's celebration. Now, I want to say welcome to every single one of you for making tonight possible. And I want to welcome you to the 2015 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. I am your host this evening. And do not call me Tzitziki or Mitsubishi or Kawasaki. My real name is Tzitziki, which is a Purépecha name from Michoacán, Mexico. Yes, 100% Mexican. And now, on behalf of MALDEF today, which we are honoring those Latinos, every single one of you guys being here tonight for making a difference and making sure that we advance in all the efforts that we're making, I want to make sure that tonight will not be possible with every one of your support. We have a great program lined up this evening, so let's get started. As many of you already know, MALDEF was founded in 1968 during one of America's darkest hours with the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Senator Robert Kennedy. Now, a ray of support for the community, MALDEF sought to fulfill the critical needs for the nation's growing Latino community through litigation, advocacy, and leadership development on all those issues that affect children and newcomers. Now, MALDEF's victory on the historic voting rights case, White versus Register, significantly raised the value of the Latino vote by safeguarding communities from at-large redistricting systems. In another landmark case, MALDEF attorneys successfully secured free public education for all school children, regardless of their parents' immigration status. This is very important. Now, as a Latino legal voice for civil rights in America, MALDEF has helped bring significant gains in the area of civil rights in this country. However, we still have a great road ahead of us. We have MALDEF now to lead the fight in our courts to secure a better quality of life for Latinos throughout our great nation. Now, our program this evening is going to celebrate the careers and the accomplishments of many amazing individuals who have dedicated themselves through safeguarding and expanding the civil rights of the Latino community. Now, as every one of you will see shortly, we owe them a great deal for the selflessness and the courage. That said, let's start with the first honoree this evening. Judy Lichman has been guiding an influential force in the women's movement for more than 40 years. She stepped down as the president of the National Partnership for Women and Families in 2004 and is presently senior advisor at the National Partnership. Now, after receiving her law degree from the University of Wisconsin in 1965, Lichman held senior positions in education and government before becoming the executive director and first paid staff person for the Women's Legal Defense Fund in 1974. That organization became the National Partnership for Women and Families in February 1998. Lichman's vision and the National Partnership's strength and direct leadership have resulted in the passage of some of the most important legal protections for American women and families, including the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 and the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. In 1996, the National Partnership helped shape the key provision of the HIPAA Act that made it easier for women and their families to get help and health coverage and to keep it. Recently, Lichman has led efforts to promote patient protections and to bring paid family and medical leave to California. Lichman has been recognized by a variety of organizations and leaders for their strategic abilities and their tireless commitment to building a truly just society. Even Clinton, listen to this, Clinton referred to Lichman as a remarkable national treasure. Let's take a look at her video profile.
My first impression is Judy was truly a force, somebody who people thought of as having great wisdom, being very thoughtful, being very, very strategic.
People who knew us both said that we had to get to know each other, that we would love each other, and it would be a great working relationship. And that is just what happened.
Judith and I have been friends for more than 3 decades. And we met working on these issues of social justice, civil rights. And Judith's focus was the rights of women.
When I was working on women's rights in the early 70s, Judy came to run what was then called the Women's Legal Defense Fund that became the National Partnership for Women and Families.
We used to host large coalition meetings, and I would sit in those coalition meetings and people would be going round and round on some particular topic. And all of a sudden, Judy Lichtman would speak up, and the room would get quiet, and people would really listen to what she had to say, and it would change the conversation. She would be the person who made the pivotal point that would be sort of the aha moment, or the, yeah, that makes sense moment in those conversations. And she would have this extraordinarily positive impact on then what the coalition would continue to talk about and the direction it would take.
She has many strengths, but her strategic vision and her political acumen are second to none.
She's warm, she's engaging, she's knowledgeable, she's interesting, she's smart. So there's an immediate sense of this is a person I'm going to enjoy spending time with, and an important person that I will be able to learn much from.
Judy is one of the most superbly confident and centered people I have ever met. And every step of the way in my work with her, I felt like she was secure in what she was good at, secure in what she believed needed to be done, but so welcoming of the skills and the talents and the contributions of others. It was never a competition. She's never threatened by others' success. She became an extraordinary mentor, a teacher, as well as a leader, and my dearest friend.
She spoke out, she was out front, you know, she formed a coalition of women of all races and ethnicities to make a difference.
I think what she has lived and what she has demonstrated so amply is that women's rights are civil rights. Civil rights are human rights. And that what I'm most proud of is that she embodies the principle of coalitions and the strength and commitment of coalitions working together.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. MALDEF is now proud to recognize Judith Lichtman with its Lifetime Achievement, Excellence in Legal Service Award. Let's give her a great round of applause.
Not sure that any hat I own will fit for a long time after watching my dear friends and that extraordinary film. At least one of those people, Deborah Ness, my successor as president of the National Partnership, is sitting there at the table with some other colleagues and dear friends from the partnership, my 101-year-old mother, my daughter, and my wonderful and dear husband and partner for over 47 years. I have a lot of blessings. I thank you so much for this incredible honor, and I will treasure it for the rest of my life, to be sure, because it comes from an organization that I respect and I have admired you for decades. I'm not sure really that I have the words to tell you what this means to me. As you all now know, if you didn't before, I've devoted my professional life to the National Partnership for Women and Families, which works to make quality, affordable health care available to everyone, that makes our workplaces more fair and family-friendly, and to promote justice and equality for all people. We opened up our doors in 1971, just 3 years after Waldorf began its vitally important work, and over these 40 years, we've had no closer, more reliable, or more effective ally in partnering than with the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund. I am, and I have always been, one of your greatest admirers. We work together. It's a good applause line, you're right. We work together because both of our organizations share a vision that everyone in this country deserves to be in the mainstream, to have a fair shot, to live free from discrimination, to be able to hold jobs and care for their families, to have the chance to realize their full potential. Separately and together, we've achieved a tremendous amount in making that vision a reality. We've used the legal system to win change, persuaded lawmakers, mobilized the public, and changed the culture. And generations of families have better prospects and better lives as a result. No talk by me would be complete without a clarion call to continue to do justice. We have come very far as a nation, and we have very far to go. As long as in 2015, vast numbers of people continued to be denied the right to vote in the most blatant and ugly ways, denied the right to legally immigrate, as long as people are shut out of job opportunities because of what they are rather than what they can do, as long as people are denied access to quality health care, as long as poor people live on the street and are hungry, as long as our education system is failing our children, and there is brutality and depravity around the world, we have more work to do. I want to close with a story, and it's not mine. It's a story of a wonderful civil rights lawyer, Franny Lou Hamer. She told the story of an old man. And this old man was very wise. And he could answer questions that most people found it impossible to answer. So 2 young people had a plan, and they said, one day, we're going to trick this guy today. We're going to catch a bird, and we're going to carry it to this old man, and we're going to ask him, is this that we hold in our hands today, is it alive or is it dead? And if he says dead, we're going to turn it loose and let it fly. But if he says alive, we're going to crush it. So they walked up to this old man and they said, quote, this that we hold in our hand today, is it alive or is it dead? And he looked at the young people and he smiled and he said, it is in your hands. It is in your hands to carry forward the great work of this organization and the struggles that continue for as far as we have come, and indeed we have come very far. There's a lot of work to do. So I salute Tom and my co-honorees. I am honored to be honored with you, and I congratulate all of you in this room, and there's a lot of work to do. I thank you.
There is definitely a lot of work to do, but you've definitely made it a lot easier for the rest of us. Let's give her a great round of applause to Judy Lichman and for all those remarks. Thanks, Judy. Now, it is my honor to introduce our award recipient for MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement excellent in government service in the incomparable Congressman Rubén Hinojosa. Congressman Hinojosa was elected to Congress in 1996 and is currently serving his 9th term. He is regarded as a champion for the disadvantaged and has distinguished himself as a strong advocate for education, housing, and economic development. His primary goal in Congress has been to reduce the chronic unemployment rate in regions of his district by focusing on developing a highly educated, well-trained workforce, modernizing the local infrastructure, including roads and highways, and creating new job opportunities. Congressman Hinojosa has been instrumental in bringing down unemployment rates from 22% in 1997 to record lows of 6% in 2008. Congressman Hinojosa was elected by acclamation in November of 2012 as the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and served 2 years. He's currently co-chairman of the CHC Education Task Force. Now, during his 16 years in Congress, Congressman Hinojosa has also succeeded in vaulting Hispanics serving institutions to a position of prominence in higher education. He is widely recognized as a leader of issues affecting the underserved, from banking to housing. He and Congresswoman Judy Biggert co-founded the House Financial Literacy and Economic Education Caucus in 2004, which currently numbers 87 members from both sides of the aisle. Let's take a look at Congressman Hinojosa's video profile.
The congressman and myself came to the United States Congress almost the same time. I came a few years earlier than Congressman Hinojosa, but soon thereafter he came, and there was an immediate bond and understanding of the kind of passion that he had for his district and the service that he had already given to the community, and his recognition that his job was to change lives.
Ruben is a very special individual. He's an older gentleman that is truly exemplifies the Latino who is educated, who is a businessman, and who cares about what he does, not only his family, but the role that he carries in Washington.
I was just impressed with his natural curiosity about the system, the people, and always the question, where are the Latinos? That was a question that I heard the first day I met him, and that was a question that resonated throughout our time together.
From the beginning, you can see his drive was really about, impacting his community. He saw high unemployment rates, he saw, real opportunity, and that is what drove him, is real economic progress, opportunity for his community.
I think what drives him is that he has been given so much opportunity. He is a member of the United States Congress, and he wants to give back. That's very important to him, giving back and making sure that he has left in his footprints the opportunity for someone else to walk that same journey and even to surpass him.
He helped establish the first magnet school in South Texas, and today Med High serves 800 students that are preparing for careers in science, technology, engineering, and math.
I visited, he invited me years ago, I went. I was very impressed. He has managed to bring together business, aerospace, local educators and families, even families who've never had the opportunity to go to university are now ensuring their children are attending university so they can be successful. And that'll mean a lot for the future of Texas.
Congressman Hinojosa, my friend, never forgets his district and the people he loves, and they will always be in his eyesight for rewarding them as voters and taxpayers and citizens and people who are here in this country, who work hard and made this country great. He will say to them, I'm standing here for you, and I will never, never look away from you.
I want to thank him for never forgetting where he came from. The proud son of immigrant parents. Deep in South Texas, He never forgot the situation there, and he fights for us every day.
Que se oiga ese aplauso. Please welcome Congressman Hinojosa to the stage.
Sisiki, thank you. Thank you very much for your wonderful introduction. But before I speak from prepared remarks, I want to thank my friend and colleagues, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas, another wonderful Congresswoman, Grace Napolitano, my former Chief of Staff, Rita Jaramillo, and Esther Aguilera, CEO of CHCI, and so many people who I am grateful for helping me do the things that I have been able to do in these 19 years in Congress. I want to thank you so much for this wonderful award. I am truly honored and humbled to be here this evening in such distinguished company. I want to add my congratulations to our other honoree, Judith Leichtman. She has done outstanding work and is truly deserving of the Lifetime Achievement and Excellence in Legal Service Award. I want to thank the President, Thomas Science, and the MALDEF Board of Directors for presenting me with this Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Government Service Award. Last but not least, I want to thank my wife, Marty, who is with me this evening, for supporting me for more than 3 decades as I pursued a career in public service, including Congress. All these years of serving in Congress and having served on the South Texas Community College Board as founding president, and having served on the Texas State Board of Education for another 10 years, I can tell you that she has helped me so very much, and I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, since 1968, this organization of MALDEF has led the way in promoting social change and civil justice for our Latino community. During my time in Congress, and most recently during my tenure as chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, MALDEF has been a strong partner as we have fought to bring people out of the shadows and into the light of opportunity through comprehensive immigration reform. But immigration reform has not been our only battle. As a senior member of the Committee on Education and Workforce, I have spent the majority of my career in Congress working to improve access to affordable, quality education for every student, including those who are most vulnerable. I truly believe that the Latino community in our nation will only succeed if every child reaches their full potential. Using the judicial and legislative process, we have made tremendous progress. Don't let anybody fool you. We have made great progress. As chairman of the Higher Education Subcommittee, I was proud to join President Obama in signing a bill into law, the largest investment in minority-serving institutions in United States history, a $2.55 billion over 10 years. from 2011 through 2020, we should see that the Hispanic serving institutions, of which we had about 100 the first year that I started, and we were receiving only $10 million a year for all of them, as compared to today with that legislation and many other pieces that came before that. Those funds are being used to recruit high school students and college students and train minority students, particularly in the fields of science, math, engineering, and technology, as well as allied health and energy jobs in oil and gas. Through increases in Pell funding and investments in our K-12 education system, the Pew Research Center's Hispanic Project found that among 18 to 24-year-olds, U.S. post-secondary students, the higher education enrollment rate of Latino high school graduates surpassed that of white high school graduates in 2012 for the very first time. It makes my heart swell with pride that working together in coalitions with the Tri-Caucus, being the Hispanic Caucus, the Black Caucus, and the Asian Pacific American Caucus, we have done what the naysayers said couldn't be done. And that is to pass the Affordable Care Act, to pass the reconciliation of higher education, and did things that I could list, and I can tell you is changing for the better, the quality of life of Latinos and Latinas throughout our United States. That is an amazing achievement and is a testament to the hard work and dedication of not only everyone in this room tonight, but to the thousands of teachers, educators, parents, and community leaders who understand the importance of investing in higher education for all. Despite our successes, there's more to be done, and I look forward to working with MALDEF as we continue the fight to ensure equal justice and equal access for all. Thank you again for honoring me with this distinguished award. May God bless you.
Que se oiga ese aplauso, por favor, para el Congressman Hinojosa. Thank you, Congressman, for your leadership. And both of our honorees, if you paid attention, the honoree Judith also mentioned how important it is to recognize that even though we've done a lot, there's still a lot more to be done, and the same thing for Congressman Hinojosa sharing with us. Now, we have definitely made great strides under different watches of tonight's honorees. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we are all hungry. Are we? Can we raise our hands? Don't be shy. I am. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to enjoy dinner, and then we're going to come back with the program. Enjoy. Buen provecho. I want to introduce to you the President of MALDEF and General Counsel, Tomás Sáenz. Un fuerte abrazo, por favor, para él. Ustedes lo conocen.
Thank you, Tsitiki, and really, from the bottom of my heart, our gratitude to you for stepping in and presiding over this tremendous evening, which is still going on. We have one more very important honoree, but before we get to that, I want to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Our distinguished keynote speaker is one of the few, the proud, a Latino member of the President's Cabinet and the Administrator of the United States Small Business Administration. Prior to our speaker's arrival in Washington, she founded the first Latino-formed commercial bank in California more than 35 years ago. Her service in California includes being the Secretary of Business, Transportation, and Housing, where she was the first Latina to hold a state cabinet post in our largest state, California. She entered the private sector as the Director of Public Affairs for 7-Up RC Bottling Company. She was a founding director of the California Endowment, one of the most important charitable foundations in California, and I should add, a supporter of MALDEF. And she also is one of the founding board members of Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, or HOPE, a nonprofit dedicated to encouraging Latinas to engage more fully in the democratic process. She was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. She is a first-generation immigrant who came to the United States at the age of 5 with her mother and 5 siblings. Ladies and gentlemen, as the President and General Counsel of MALDEF, it is my great pleasure to welcome and introduce our keynote speaker, the Administrator of the Small Business Administration, Maria Contreras Sweet.
¿Cómo amanecieron? ¿Todos bien? Qué gusto me da verlos ahora, anoche. And speaking of nice things, that's always, my mother always taught me manners, and so when family's in the room, you all know I'm Maria Contreras, and so to the man who made me sweet, it's nice to see Ray Sweet in the room today. Anyway, thank you, Tom, for that very generous introduction, and to be with you with such an august group of honorees that you've selected today. We're so proud of the distinguished group you've selected. I had the pleasure of serving as the audit chairman for the Hispanic Congressional Caucus and serving in partnership with Congressman Hinojosa. And it's so nice to see you again, to the entire family. And the legacy that you leave us as fighting and advancing and pushing for women at every day. You are so deserving of this honor and so much more. Congratulations to all of you. Is Jenny? There she is. And of course, our wonderful, our judicial system that's so fundamental and so to sustain us and to bring a sense of justice, and congratulations to you as well. Such a pleasure to be with all of you here today. I'm delighted to be here. These are very, very interesting times in Washington, D.C., so I'm delighted that you've come in to convene. You know, they always say that AstroTurf is good, but there's nothing like grassroots initiatives. And so it's so nice to have you all here. You come as always. There's always something going on in Washington, and of late there is so much to take that really should draw your attention and hopefully your engagement. So I'm delighted to be a part of breaking bread with you and learning more about what you're all doing here. Tom has always been such a stalwart on behalf of the Latino community and everything that he has done. And it was really just wonderful to see him come back to MALDEF. So congratulations to you. We're so proud of you. It is a pleasure for me to be here representing the President's Cabinet. And let me just say that this is the first time in our nation's history that we have three Latino cabinet members at once. It's very, very nice to be there. I must say that I do tease, however, Tom Perez every time he stands up and says, Mr. President, the job growth continues to grow. We've had the longest, the strongest consecutive job growth in American history, 61 months of consecutive job growth. I get to raise my hand and say, but Mr. President, 2/3 of that job growth is coming from the small business community. So we kind of tease each other a little bit. But I can't tell you what a pleasure it has been. Just recently, we just went down to Panama to meet with so many of heads of state throughout the Americas, and the conversation there, and to see the President in action, his most important and serious engagement that we have seen in Latin America in a really long time. I know that you heard what we were there to do. One, to begin normalization with Cuba, our relations with Cuba. It was wonderful. I haven't talked about this publicly, but I have to say to you that until the president took his seat at the convening of Del Cumbre de las Americas, you can't have an empty seat at the Cumbre. And so until he arrived, they asked me to take his seat. And I kept looking to my left because there was a gentleman who kept looking toward me, and then I realized it was Raul Castro. And so I said to my ambassador, our American ambassador to Panama, and I said, "What's protocol here?" And he says, "I think you can say hello." So of course, Maria Contreras Sweet, I got up and walked over and said hello to him, and we had a lovely chat. And I just said, it's historic. It's historic, and I hope if you haven't heard President Castro's testimony at the Cumbre, I really, really invite you to say it, because he gave a historical view as to why he has felt the way he has, but he really illustrated and really just overstressed the point about how he feels about what the president is doing today. So it was really nice to be personally engaging him on that topic and to know that he's ready to do B2B work with us here today. And so it was a historic moment and one that I'll never forget. But more importantly, it was really nice to see that so many times when we turn on the television, they're always talking about what America is engaging in that's the negative. We hear about terrorism, we hear about tyranny, we hear about the Russian aggression, we hear about the steps that we're taking to counter all of the threats that we find ourselves in. It was nice to see the press talk about what we are for in this environment. And so, as I said, one is, of course, our normalization and the work that we're advancing to improve our relationship and trade relationship with Cuba. But second, I was able to announce the second piece of a program that I announced in Morocco. What the president announced is that we want to promote global entrepreneurship. We know that the instant you light up your website, whether you want to be in trade or not, we know that the instant you light up a website, you are engaging in global marketplace. You are in global trade. I visit small businesses around the country, and they all say to me, "These are the bags that I buy from Kenya. These are the ingredients that I get from bauxite in Africa." And so that already, when I lit up my first business website, people came to me and competed to design my website, people from India. And so we know that even though we're small businesses, we're engaged in trade and the important role that that plays. So the president was just suggesting that if we're going to be involved in trade, how do we assure that you have somebody to trade with? So we want to lift the entire nation. And so in Morocco, I announced with the vice president a new initiative that we call Spark. And it speaks to sparking innovation, entrepreneurship around the globe. And we're able to announce at our first meeting already that we had raised towards this $1 billion goal, that we had raised $100 million, a very generous donation from the Kauffman Foundation, very committed to global entrepreneurship. And so that was the second thing that we stressed when we were in Panama. The third thing was that I had an opportunity to do is to address all the youth that had convened around the Cumbre. And it was just marvelous to see these young, energetic innovators that were ready to disrupt and do all sorts of exciting things. And then when I flipped into my Espanol and told them I was born in Guadalajara, it was just very exciting to see, their reaction to it all. And they just moved me so much so. But we were able to tell them that it wasn't just about me going there to speak to them, that what we want to do is invite them to come and to get to know us better. I've always felt that the more you get to know somebody, the more you love them, the more you respect them, the more you're eager to work alongside them. And so the president announced the program that we call 100,000 Strong. And that is where we will be sending throughout the Americas, 100,000 students will be selected from the United States to be placed around the Americas in different universities around the Americas and to learn about the culture. But likewise, we will be inviting 100,000 students from throughout the Americas to come here and experience our culture and get to know us. And we think that through those partnerships, we'll get more serious engagement and hopefully more prosperity for both the United States and for Latin Americas. The president also announced another program that we're very encouraged by, what we call the Young Leaders Initiative, the Young Leaders of America Initiative, where it's the same kind of thing, but now we're using our growth accelerators. Some of you in your communities call them innovation hubs, some of them call them incubators, growth accelerators, whatever the nomenclature, it's still the same. This is where disruption is taking place. It's where innovation is taking place. It's where young people are getting access to capital. And so what we want to do is do the same. We want to have an exchange of having entrepreneurs come here and participate in our growth accelerators in our universities, and reciprocally invite our innovators and our entrepreneurs, emprendedores, to go and to visit the Latin American countries. And again, continuing to foster this exchange so that we can continue to build on our common culture, our common value system. I always say that when we talk about exchange and trade, as we're pushing for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, people ask me about what the components are. Yes, and some of it are labor standards, some of them are environmental standards, some of them are the way we're going to market and exchange in a proper place to resolve disputes and find a place to resolve those disputes. But mostly what we're talking about, I think, when you talk about those things, is that we're going to have an opportunity to export our values, our value system, because at the end of the day, that is when you say you don't want somebody to treat an individual a certain way when they're producing a product. That's the American culture. That's the American standard. And that's what we're doing through these trade agreements, is democratizing countries that might otherwise go in other directions. And again, we have to continue to stamp out the tyranny that's taking place in so many countries. So it was wonderful to be there. At the SBA, for those of you who are not familiar, just to level set, the SBA is, we call it the 3 C's. It's very straightforward. We're about counseling centers. We have counseling programs throughout the country to help you start, grow, repair, or go to scale. We have access to capital programs so that once you have your plan in place and then you're looking for access to capital to fuel your business plan, the SBA stands in. Some of you have a wealthy uncle, but most of us don't, and so you have Uncle Sam with the SBA that stands in as a guarantor to make sure that banks get to yes when they otherwise wouldn't be able to get to yes. We have, on average, about a $100 billion portfolio of small business loans that we put out, again, as a guarantor to make sure that a banker gets to yes more readily. And then the third, you say, okay, I've got my plan, I've got my access to capital, now I need customers. And so in that regard, the SBA is responsible for the federal marketplace. And so we take 23% of the federal spend and direct it to small businesses. Last year was the first time in 8 years that I was able to announce that the federal government reached its 23% goal. And I was very, very happy with that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And so all of that is working so well, and we're very pleased about that. But it's not enough, and I know that, and you know that. And so what have I done since I've gotten there? You're probably saying, what does a Latina do when she gets to the SBA, and what are we doing differently? Well, first, I came in and I said, let's change the frame, the conversation, and let's call the SBA the smart, the bold, and the accessible. And in that regard, I thought that was clever. All right, sorry. But so what I did is I just challenged our team to look at all of the smart systems, the new technology that's in place, to be able to get to you in a more efficient and effective way. And so we recently launched a program that I'm very fond of, and it's called LINC, L-I-N-C, and the C is, of course, for capital. And when you go to this program, it reminds me of, and I'm not promoting another brand, but it reminds me of Match.com. I don't know how many of you have ever gone online on Match.com, but you answer a few simple questions, okay? You answer a few simple questions, and you get to meet somebody that could be the love of your life. But our LINC is a little different. You answer a few simple questions, and after you answer them, you get introduced to a date with a lender. So sorry about that, but it could be the love of your life, trust me. And so this is already taking hold, and what it's doing actually is so many times you go to bank after bank and you get a really slow maybe and you don't get a response. So in this instance, now we're matching you up very quickly so that you're in the driver's seat. When you answer those questions, all the banks in your region can see that information and decide if they want to respond. It's been really working very effectively. So those are the kinds of initiatives that we're putting in place. There's so much more, but again, I just encourage you to go to sba.gov. After that, I said that's the SMART initiative that we're putting in place. But the BOLD, again, is about bolder market making. We want to make sure that when you're ready to go into the international community, that you know the rules of engagement. So I convened the first ever ministerial, the Small Business Ministerial in Milan, just recently, where I convened all of my counterparts around the world, or at least invited them. We had 150 countries who represented 5 different continents, and it was wonderful to see us all talking about the rules of engagement, and so that we could help you navigate through that marketplace. And last, it's about the accessible. How do we make sure that all of you have the equal access to the kind of programs that SBA provides? And so what I've done is I've said to the banks, I need for you to be more diverse. And they said, well, we like the larger loans. The larger loans are easier to do. And I said, so much of our community needs the smaller loans. So what I've done is I've zeroed out fees on loans under $150,000 to make sure that more of our people are not paying fees on our loans and that the banks are more apt to do them because we're not charging them a fee either. That's on loans under $150,000. Thank you. Thank you. We've done so many other things, like under $350,000, I've changed the regulatory construct of underwriting to make sure that we're putting an emphasis and a value system on character and not just your collateral and your credit score. And that has also proven to be very successful. And then I called upon the credit unions, you know, who have been sitting on the sidelines with respect to SBA lending, and I challenged them and entered into 3 MOUs where they're now committing to doing more SBA lending. The whole of this effort has responded the community has responded in such a positive way, so we're doing push and pull marketing. We're pushing more people into the institutions through our marketing programs, and we're pulling them through these relationships that we're building with the banks. And so this is the news. You know, I'm a banker, right? We know that metrics matter. And I'm pleased to tell you that since I've arrived, as a result of these initiatives, Hispanic lending has gone up by 20%. Really proud of that. Anyway, I could go on to tell you more and more about all the work that we're doing, but let me just say that I'm so pleased to see you here. I hope that you'll come to sba.gov to learn more about how we can help you grow and change the arc of your family's life. I mean, you're already successful here, but I'm hoping you're going to go back and be disciples of change in your communities, to talk to them about what we're doing. We also have mezzanine capital. We have private equity capital. We have early stage. We have the best innovation program. We are the largest seed fund in the world. And yet, as I travel across the country, I don't see enough Latinos responding and applying to our program. So Tom and I are going to try to do more work around that work. But so let me just say that we all know that our civil rights are important, but embedded in that is our market rights. And you remember, hopefully many of you saw the movie recently about Selma. And one of my favorite quotes was in that movie that Martin Luther King stated. And now with the passage of the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, it's important to recall what Martin Luther King reminded us of. And he said, what good is it to be able to sit at an integrated counter if we can't afford to buy the hamburger? And that's what we say is, it's not just about being able to sit at that counter, it's about being able to make the purchase. So with the SBA, we don't want to go back to help you buy the hamburger, of course. We want to help you go back to buy the restaurant. We're about ownership and social mobility. And so that is why my story is a story that I want to replicate over and over. Tom alluded to it, and many of you are my friends in this room. I see so many of you, who are here in my room, and so you know my story, as Tom just alluded. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, came here at the age of 5, And my abuelita always said, if you bring others along somehow, some way, I believe that someday you'll be able to work in an office and to be a secretary. And so, of course, the good Lord answered her and allowed me to hold office and to be a cabinet secretary. And that is the beauty of America. Thank you. And so let me just close with another one of my favorite quotes. When I did arrive here, it was soon after that we lost John F. Kennedy, and so I still like to read his passages and take in how he thought about the world. And so he said, in America, we don't all have equal talent, but in America, we should be given an equal opportunity to pursue our talent. And that is what we can do. That is what we can do together with the population numbers that you now know that the Latino population is, you could take the BRIC countries combined, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and think about what we're doing in terms of our economic power and know that we are a force that is comparable. We appear to be the 11th largest economy in the world. And so with that kind of momentum, we can do anything. Let's seize the moment. We represent $1 trillion worth of economic prowess. Let's harness it to change the world. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. She truly is a role model for so many of the Latino communities seeking to make their mark on the world and creating thriving small business across the country. Thank you so, so much. Now we have the distinct pleasure of bringing back to the stage a leader that has dedicated his life's work to advancing the rights of Latinos in this country. And as you already know, he's one of our nation's most respected and experienced civil rights lawyer, and he's responsible for many of Maldiv's renowned settlements and courtroom victories on behalf of the Latino community. Ladies and gentlemen, Tomás Sáenz. Un fuerte aplauso para él, por favor.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being here. What a delightful and invigorating evening. Really created for us by a set of honorees unmatched in their eloquence and a keynote speaker whose message resonates so clearly throughout the room, through this evening, and throughout the year across the country. Let me begin, of course, by once more thanking Tzitziki for her tremendous stewardship of this evening. She stepped in on short notice and has made a tremendous contribution to the success of tonight, so thank you. This event every year is a reunion of sorts of so many folks who have served on Maldiv's board of directors, who currently serve on Maldiv's board of directors, and some who in the future will serve on Maldiv's board of directors. So let me also thank our board members who are here, ask them to stand and receive the gratitude for your ongoing support of our tremendously important organization. Board members. And of course, like every event like this, our success this evening owes tremendously to the efforts of a volunteer corps of dinner committee members who work with us to identify potential honorees, who work with us to identify potential financial supporters and contributors, and who work with us to fill this room with so many who daily toil in the fields of civil rights. So our dinner committee members, please stand and thank you for your efforts this year and in years past. I do want to thank our development staff who are responsible every year for not just this one, but actually 4 dinner galas equally star-studded, equally eloquent, equally inspiring around the country, led by our Vice President of Development and Strategic Initiatives, David Damian Figueroa, who is not here, but who is behind the scenes for all of this. but led this evening by Cynthia Gutierrez and Stephanie Loera, Jose Delgado, and so many others who work tirelessly to create these successful events. I have mentioned already the eloquence of our cabinet member, a Californian, Maria Contreras Sweet, and even though she's no longer here this evening, I do want to thank her for sharing her tremendously important message this evening. And of course, they've already been remarked upon successively by so many, and deservedly. I want to thank each of our honorees for allowing us to celebrate their accomplishments, but more important, allowing us to highlight the inspiration that they daily provide to those in this room and beyond to continue the tremendously important work that we take on together. Of course, the formidable, the tenacious, the bridge builder, Judy Lichtman. Thank you so very much for being here this evening. Our committed, our wise, our hard-working Congress member from Texas, Ruben Hinojosa, thank you so much for allowing us to honor you this evening. As I think many of you know, our leader in Washington, D.C., our regional counsel, James Ferd Kadima, did leave MALDEF in the last year. He left us to continue his civil rights career inside in the Department of Education as a leader of the Civil Rights Office, working to ensure what he had dedicated his career to date and will continue in the future to dedicate his career to, achieving equal opportunity in education for all. In his absence, I want to thank Jim and congratulate him on his continuing inspiring career. Please join me in thanking Jim. I also want to thank and ask to stand our DC staff beyond Jim over the course of the last year: Adam Fernandez, Amy Pedersen, Andrea Centeno, and Jose Magaña Salgado, although he too has chosen to continue his civil rights career elsewhere. To all of them for your efforts this year and in the future, thank you. And of course, I want to thank each and every one of you who are here and still here this evening for your commitment to collaboration and partnership in this tremendous mission that we pursue together. You'll forgive me if my remarks seem inspired, as they are, by spending the day after a red-eye flight in Washington, D.C. on a tremendous spring day, too delayed this year, but a tremendous spring day with blossoms and magnolias in bloom around Washington, D.C. If I note that those of us in this room and beyond who toil today in the field of civil rights have the great honor and privilege of doing so in an era that properly commemorates so many anniversaries. On this occasion, we've discussed this before, but it's worth noting again that this year, 2015, is the 50th anniversary of so many critically important civil rights legislative achievements in this city of Washington. They start, of course, with the Voting Rights Act, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, properly noted by many as the most successful civil rights legislation in our nation's history. But it includes also, not often remarked upon as among the pantheon of civil rights achievements of the 1960s, but it includes also the 50th anniversary in the fall of the Immigration Act of 1965, which ensured that our country formally turned away from its facially discriminatory national origin quota system that deprived so many from around the world of the right to immigrate. And it includes the 50th anniversary just this past weekend, on April 11th, of the enactment of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. An unprecedented investment by the federal government in ensuring that those who face the greatest obstacles would have support, would have directives from the federal government at the highest level to try to achieve equity of opportunity for them in the education arena. These three acts are among many that in this series of years will celebrate their half-century mark. And those of us in this room and beyond who have the honor of continuing to work in the shadow of that legacy properly recognize and commemorate those anniversaries. But on a spring day, it seems appropriate to note that we are the inheritors of a legacy that is embodied in a garden of justice. We are the new caretakers, and particularly in the Latino community, as the largest minority group in the country today. We are the inherited caretakers of the garden of justice that began half a century ago with the sacrifices and the efforts of those who came before. But in this era of commemoration, there are too many who would see the garden of justice as a sculpture garden, a garden of unchanging stone carvings whose only development is to slowly deteriorate through environmental and biological forces over time. But in this room, we know that the garden of justice is not a sculpture garden. It is a living orchard of trees dedicated to ensuring that our nation lives up to its long-standing constitutional and equity principles. Yes, we commemorate those who planted the seeds for that orchard, whose sweat, whose tears, whose blood, whose shattered and unachieved dreams, as well as fulfilled dreams, nourished the ground and gave those trees of justice life. But were we to treat those trees as sculptures, we would dishonor those in whose footsteps we follow. We have to recognize that the orchard of justice is a living garden that requires us over time to occasionally prune, to graft, to nurture, and to grow, to improve upon what our forebears planted in the ground half a century ago. It means recognizing that 50th anniversary commemorations are not about placing bouquets at the feet of a sculpture, but about ensuring and recommitting to growing that orchard of justice. It means, in the context of immigration, recognizing that however critical the achievement of the Immigration Act of 1965, we have an obligation 50 years later to ensure that the next immigration reform just around the corner, I am sure, will eliminate the national origin discrimination still embedded in our laws, that ensures that an immigrant, potential immigrant from Mexico will wait decades longer than an equally situated immigrant, potential immigrant from another country in our world. It means ensuring in 2015 that our next immigration reform recognizes the injustices occasioned by that ongoing discrimination and accords full rights to the millions who have contributed to the growth of our country and the continued growth of that garden of justice, despite doing so without full legal protections. But more importantly, in this week, when the United States Senate has taken up a reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, it means recognizing, as we have seen in other civil rights fields, that the tree for education equity is in particular in need of a strong, strong hand, a federal hand. It means recognizing that just as in other areas, voting, housing, employment discrimination, we cannot simply assume that exhortation, that sunshine, that transparency alone will ensure that states like Arizona, states like Mississippi, states like Alabama, states like Georgia, states like Indiana, that all of the states will attend to the necessity, the national necessity, the national security necessity of achieving an end to the education gap, of achieving true equitable educational opportunity for all in this country. We must recognize 50 years later that a reauthorization of ESEA that does not strengthen the federal hand in ensuring system accountability for addressing gaps that we have accommodated, tacitly accepted for far too long, are eliminated. It means recognizing that while we honor the seed that was planted by President Johnson and the civil rights leaders across the country who championed the ESEA, means recognizing that our national obeisance to local control in education can no longer sustain what this nation needs. It means ensuring that we live up to the legacy that we inherit, that as caretakers of the garden of justice, we recognize when a tree in that orchard requires a correction. A tree in that orchard requires being shaped in a different direction, as in the realm of education equity. I said earlier that in the Latino community, we bear a particular responsibility as the inheritors, though so many of our own forebears in the Latino community were there at the inception. But as the largest minority group in the country, we bear a particular responsibility in ensuring that the nation understands in this era of commemoration that we are not bowing to sculpture. We are tending to a growing orchard of justice and civil rights. At MALDEF, we commit to bearing our part in tending to that garden. And we know that all of you in the room, by your presence here tonight and your ongoing efforts throughout the year, have demonstrated your partnership. We look forward to continuing to work with you throughout the year and the years that follow in not just commemorating, but caretaking together that all-important orchard of justice. Thank you.
Que se oiga ese aplauso, por favor. Let's give him another great round of applause. Tom Saenz. I want to thank every single one of you for being here tonight, and also thank all of you for just making sure that we are progressing constantly and striving to achieve our goals. I want to thank you for supporting MALDEF's 2015 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. MALDEF, as Tom Saenz was saying, recognizes how privileged it is to enjoy the ongoing support of so many capable and wise partners. Thank you all for the commitment. Have a great rest of the evening.